Welcome. I am really glad you are here. I am Laureen Quick, and I work with women over 50 who are navigating change. Often they do this without even a clear name for what they're going through. Many women don't identify themselves as caregivers, yet feel increasingly tired, constrained, and invisible inside their own lives, shaped by great responsibility and also by great loyalty. This conversation is a part of the Next Chapter Summit, a gathering for women navigating change, reinvention, and renewal after 50. It's a space that invites all of us to name what's been quietly carried, not to fix it, not to rush past it, but to finally see it. So many women after 50 step into caregiving with one responsibility at a time, step after step. And there's no ceremony, there was no clear agreement. It's just a gradual reshaping of their time, their identity, and often without their clear permission. It just sort of seems to happen. What is lost goes unnamed, even as the toll accumulates. That is why I'm deeply grateful to be joined today by Darra Wray. Darra is a caregiver advocate, senior care consultant, and co-author of the book Winning Strategies for Family Caregiving: Lessons for Family Game Night. Drawing on decades of lived experience and executive leadership, Darra helps women gently name the unseen costs of caregiving and begin reclaiming themselves with clarity, compassion, and without guilt. What you're about to hear is not a lesson, nor is it a checklist. It's a conversation grounded in honest and deeply human compassion. It is also a glimpse into the kind of care-centered dialogue that we are creating throughout the upcoming summit. Darra, I am so glad that you are here. Let's begin.
Thank you. I am glad to be here. And I just have to say thank you. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this conversation and in the summit.
I am thrilled to have you with us. My first question tonight is that many women don't identify as caregivers. They just feel increasingly tired, constrained, and invisible inside their own lives. When women first come to you at this stage, what do you notice that they are often carrying that hasn't yet been named as loss?
Well, it's interesting, Laureen, because the first thing that you said there is they don't identify as a caregiver. Identify as a daughter, a niece, a granddaughter, a wife, a sister, a mother. I mean, there's all kinds of caregiving here and complications with lifetime. And as you increasingly take on that caregiving role in a much more involved way, and as that role shapes and changes, I think you're grieving the loss of that core role that as you used to identify it. You want to be mother or daughter or granddaughter, and you see this job evolving versus a relationship evolving. And so I think it's really that loss of the previous definition of relationship and this dawning realization of responsibility. And so it's a loss of and a change.
Hmm. And we don't often even acknowledge that. We just
Well,
feel it.
we don't see it at all because we don't see that we're caregivers. I can't tell you how many, almost every family member that I work with, they don't identify as caregiver. They still attribute this as this is what I'm supposed to do. It's this responsibility, it's this sense of
Mhm.
obligation. The, and it's a cultural expectation that falls primarily to women, not exclusively. There are men out there, some of them over 50, but primarily and predominantly to women by the nature of the way our culture ascribes caregiving responsibilities, and they don't see it. And so part of that initial conversation is, do you even call yourself a caregiver? Because then taking on that identity allows you to ask yourself questions like, am I taking care of myself? Am I making sure that I am healthy as a caregiver so that I can provide and give support to someone else? It reminds me of, when you're on an airplane and this flight attendant says, if the oxygen mask drops, make sure you put your oxygen mask on first because you can't assist someone else if you can't breathe. And that's really the space we have to think about in caregiving is if you have moved into that caregiving role, you need to ensure you're giving yourself oxygen.
And if you think about that in terms of it's an evolution of our identity, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
This is a role or a function that we may serve for years in a family.
You'll always still be whatever your primary relationship was, but you'll
Mhm.
always be that. But you're also something else. It changes your relationship. And a lot of people enter into this caregiving space as a result of some urgent issue or emergent issue. And the general thinking, and I hear it all the time, is, well, how long could this possibly last? Like, I can do this for this short period of time. And I don't actually have the statistics right in front of me, but there's a study in one of my presentations. The average caregiving role lasts about 3 to 5 years,
Wow.
with about 25% lasting more than 5 years and 10% lasting more than 10 years. And I don't care if you're 3 years or more than 10 years, that's a long time. And it's a long time to not really work through your own acceptance of this new role, understanding of how it changes your relationship, and ensuring that you have the emotional support, the knowledge, and the resources to effectively engage in this new journey.
And so for a woman that's just entering into this process, what would you wish that she understood more about how this is going to change herself, not just the
Mhm.
schedule that she lives?
Well, it's a lot of those things. It's going to change the schedule for sure, which changes you.
Mhm.
But it also changes your priorities. It changes your own view on your own mortality. It changes your own consideration of what's important and what you value. It changes what you consider to be the meaning of life. I mean, it really, when you enter into these caregiving roles and you see these changes in someone you love, it is impossible to not begin to consider what that means to you and to other people in your life.
And I know we've talked about this before, that this is like, if you think of it as a scale, what we're discussing right now is someone who's full blown into this role. But at the
Sure.
same time, all of us, as we get older and those we love age, have that role at some level too, right?
So I love that you went there because before we started talking, this identity and this concept of caregiver and this understanding that caregiving is part of the human condition,
Mhm.
and much of it falls in our culture, the responsibility falls to women, but everyone has a space and is part of this caregiving concept in the world. I like to always talk about Rosalind Carter. She was a caregiver advocate um, 36 years ago in the 80s, or 80s and 90s. She founded the Rosalind Carter Institute and was advocating for family caregivers at that time.
Oh,
We still don't talk about caregiving in a way people understand. Rosalind Carter was advocating for this 36 years ago. And in 2011, she testified before Congress on the Special Committee of Aging, and she said there are only four kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. That's it.
wow.
So will experience caregiving either as a recipient or a caregiver. And this is something we should learn to navigate and name and talk about to support more effectively at home, in our personal relationships, in our friendships, in our work situations. Employment is hugely impacted by this. And many of the women that you serve are working women, right? So this is a very transformational time for many women.
It is because I think a lot of times we evolve, and as we get older, we think, okay, now it's my turn. Now it's time for me.
Mhm.
And then you get all geared up and excited, and then boom, the next thing you know,
Just when you think it's going to be your turn, right? It feels like something else comes at you. And I think
yeah.
part of this, honestly, is because we often struggle with talking about the hard things. And so we don't see a lot of examples. We haven't talked about this. People want, and we live in a Facebook world where everybody wants to show the good stuff and how wonderful things are. And you almost feel guilty to think, well, gosh, that's not how it feels to me. And that's not what I am experiencing. And it just really goes to the more we talk about it and the more we understand what aging looks like, what caregiving looks like, how to most effectively manage that, but really to set our own expectations of the impact it's going to have on our life and managing to that impact, the less traumatic the transition and the acceptance of the reality of change can be.
Well, and I know from my own life and personal experience that whatever comes my way, if I perceive it as my choice
Mhm.
and that I feel like I have some control over how all of this happens,
Okay.
I'm much happier than if I feel like this has just happened to me and I'm now suddenly locked into somebody else's set of expectations and requirements that I'm now obligated to fulfill. So,
Yes.
like you said, the more we talk about this, the more we're prepared for it, and the more we can allow ourselves to make choices.
Agreed. And I think that the concept of choice is really interesting here because it reminds me of the game Would You Rather? Um, and it's one of the games we talk about in our book. It's a cocktail party game where you're presented with two terrible ideas. Like, would you rather clip the front lawn with nail clippers or paint your house with a child-sized paintbrush? Oh, like both of those sound horrible.
Yeah.
Like which one would you rather do, right? And caregiving, so when you say choosing something, there's often not good choices here. And so
Yeah.
I, you may not always feel like you get to choose, and you may not be able to escape the sense that you're doing this out of obligation. But if you can, and a sense of obligation, whatever that looks like or feels like to you,
Mhm.
personal, societal, whatever it may be, familial, but if you can at least empower yourself, even if you can't choose whether or not to be a caregiver, if you can educate yourself and then empower yourself to know how to identify the choices that you do have and that you can help your loved one make, then that gives you some sense of control, even if you don't really have a choice.
And at the same time, the one thing you do have a choice about is, and I always use this whenever I am feeling confused, I always ask myself, who do I want to be? Here is a
Yes.
situation I'm living in, and I may not feel like I have a choice about that situation, but I do have a choice about who I want to be.
And
Um,
how I approach the choice, that
exactly,
situation. So
exactly.
that it may not be a choice of whether to do or not to do, but a choice in how to do is definitely a choice we always have.
Yes, and it's a powerful choice
Absolutely.
if we work with that. If there is a woman watching today who feels deeply responsible and deeply loyal to her family, and at the same time quietly disconnected a little bit from herself as she serves in this role of caregiver, what would you want her to know right now, Darra?
I would want her to do two things I want her to know. Knowledge is power. Okay, three. Sorry, I got to do three. Knowledge is power. Make sure you understand what you need to do, what your choices are, how to do it. Become educated. This is something you don't learn. It's naturally, everything changes fast. Every time you're a caregiver, you have to learn new things because the world around us changes. So educate yourself for sure. Make that a priority. And then I think the other thing you need to do, I said three, I'm going to go two again, is you really need to remember your role and how to be true to yourself and stay healthy. And it goes back to my initial statement. You have to give yourself oxygen. And whether that means to you, you define what that means. Is that you need to find quiet, reflective space and make sure you're doing yoga every morning or walking in the foothills, as I know you do every day,
Mhm.
or having making time to intentionally schedule time with friends. Um, and you need to ask for help. That's the third one. So make time for yourself and ask for help. Caregiving is not an individual sport and should not be. And really making sure that you consider and develop a care team and do something that is so hard for so many women, and that's to ask. Don't wait for people to offer. Don't be brave and bold to say, oh no, I'm fine. You're not, you don't have to be fine. Ask for help and be really specific about it. Would it be possible for you come sit with my loved one for an hour while I go sit in the bathtub? Right? You don't even have to go anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be nice just to sit in the bathtub uninterrupted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Before we close, I do want to make this offer to all of you who are watching. If this conversation has helped you recognize something that you've been carrying, responsibilities that have created anxiety in your life, losses that you have never named, or even a sense of self that is slowly moving into the background, that's the kind of truth we will be making space for at the Next Chapter Summit. This gathering isn't about fixing caregiving or rushing decisions. It's all about allowing women to see themselves again with honesty, with compassion, and with choice. You'll find a link in the conversation notes all about the summit, including dates and the opportunity to register. It is free. I hope you'll check that out. Darra, thank you. Thank you so much for the clarity, the steadiness, and the deep respect you bring to women living inside caregiving roles. We are so grateful to have you as part of the summit. And to everyone listening, if you have been deeply responsible and at the same time quietly missing yourself, you are warmly invited to join us. Thanks for listening.